We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to your live boxing ego unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to your live. Well, and just like that, Rolando Rolly Romero goes in on Shakur Stevenson. He says if he were Gervonta Tank Davis, he wouldn't even bother fighting Shakur Stevenson. Basically, he says Shakur doesn't try to knock people out, is lacking in entertainment value, so the world doesn't really need to see it. In this video, that's what I want to talk about. Rolly Romero is one of the funniest, charismatic personalities in boxing. A lot of people sent me this. There's a brand new interview with Rolly on Fight Hype. He did this Fight Hype interview, and I'm just going to give my thoughts and paraphrase on what he said. But it's safe to say that Rolly definitely knows how to play it up for the cameras. He definitely knows how to rile people up, get people talking, be that icebreaker. And there are certain guys that can do it. Floyd Mayweather, Adrian Broner in his prime. Right now, Jake Paul, right? And Rolly, I think he's also one of those people who he can speak and he can entertain. And there's a lot of guys that are lacking that. And that's the reason I bring this up in this video. But he has some bold things to say regarding Shakur Stevenson and why he doesn't really want to see a fight with Gervonta Davis. So let me recap what he said. So overall, what Rolly said was that, first of all, the host asked a question and basically was like, Tank is running out of high-profile names at 135 to fight. Maybe he could fight a guy like Shakur Stevenson. And I think the host said something like he thinks it's a big fight. You immediately see Rolly's expression, and he's kind of like in disagreement, shaking his head like, nah, like I'm not really feeling that fight. And they continue the dialogue, and Rolly explains why he doesn't like Tank versus a Shakur Stevenson fight. He goes on to say and ask a question. He says, who hits harder, Edwin De Los Santos or Gervonta Davis, right? They both agree Gervonta Tank Davis hits way harder per capita than Edwin De Los Santos. So Rolly then goes on and transitions to, if Shakur fought negative, and Rolly's words, if Shakur jumped around the ring like a grasshopper and he was bouncing around, fighting negative, evasive, and got ridiculed for the Edwin De Los Santos fight on a Thursday, and we agree that Tank hits harder, do you think that Shakur would, in turn, fight negative versus Gervonta Davis, right? Funny enough, I've posed the same question. I've told you on my channel, I'm not that keen on that particular fight. Now, I would never, if they were in negotiations, I would never get in the way of the fight because apparently some people want to see it. But for my personal taste, some of the fights like Canelo Crawford or Shakur and Tank Davis that people say, oh, this is the big fight, this is a massive, major fight. For me, I'm not sharing the same anticipation, and I've already been on record. For me, I'm just telling you my personal opinion. I'd rather see Shakur and Ryan Garcia, Shakur and Devin Haney, Shakur and Abdullah Mason, Shakur Keyshawn Davis, Shakur Esau Pitbull Cruz. Like, for me, those fights are all better because of stylistic matchups and where each person is in their career. It is very evident that Tank is at the top of the heap, top of the totem pole. Everybody wants a Tank fight. Some people think that Tank would knock out Shakur. I guess some people think that Shakur would outbox him. But for me, I said the same thing that Rolly is saying. If Shakur's style has been what it's been, and when he's fighting guys, especially guys who are athletic that can punch, if you're going to be evasive with an Edwin De Los Santos, it's almost a foregone conclusion that if you get in there with Tank and start feeling that heat that he's throwing, and he's a southpaw and he's more compact. Edwin De Los Santos is taller than Tank Davis and things like that. Then for me, I truly feel it would just be Tank, the shorter person, having to chase Shakur around the ring, and Shakur would try to pot shot him and selectively open up, clinch, and have kind of an ugly win and try to steal an ugly points win off of Tank Davis. But it wouldn't be a massive event if it's on pay-per-view, which all of Gervonta Davis's fights since Leo Santa Cruz have been on pay-per-view. It would be one of those pay-per-views where people complain about it afterwards, unless Tank knocks him out, or if Tank hurts Shakur Stevenson. But for the people who think Shakur has a chance to win, right? If that were the case, it would be a points win. You just seen Shakur Stevenson, and he fought an electrician who was brought on late terms with no training camp and a domestic level resume. A lot of people don't know he fought at 140, so he had to lose even more weight to meet Shakur, the champion, at 135. So he had to lose even more weight to make 135. And literally, the guy was hanging in there with Shakur, no problem. And Shakur was landing some shots that looked like if he had power, the dude would have been in real trouble. But the dude has done interviews, Padlock, and he's done interviews, and he's stated that he wasn't bothered at all by any of Shakur's headshots. What got to him and why he got dropped 3 times and ultimately stopped in the 9th round is the body shot. And he says, I've never been knocked down in sparring, never been knocked down in the amateurs, never been knocked down as a pro. So that's why I was frustrated, right? Because I didn't have a training camp and I was just getting the wind knocked out of me and I couldn't control it. So, fair play to him, but it wasn't my night. But it really, I didn't train my body, which is the main culprit here. And I agree, because name any other fight where Shakur dropped somebody 3 times in the round, especially at lightweight. You know what I mean? So that was uncharacteristic for Shakur. And then the dude saying he's never been knocked out before or knocked down, and he was undefeated. So the process of deduction, you could deduce that, hey, a guy with no training camp, his body's going to be vulnerable and softer because he hasn't been on the elliptical. He hasn't ran miles and did the road work. He hasn't done the sit-ups. He hasn't dropped the medicine ball on his abs. You know what I'm saying? He hasn't done none of this stuff. So, of course, you're not going to be as, tip-top shape. And that's what it looked like. In addition, Shakur was busting up his own hands trying to make a statement with this guy. So Shakur's hands, he said he damaged both of his hands in the Padley fight. So you're fighting an unknown commodity, an electrician that has a 9-to-5 job. He's in there hanging, saying that Shakur's power is definitely nothing I haven't felt before. He literally did an interview after and said, I've been hit harder before. So the power, Shakur's power is nothing to write home about. How is he going to ward off Tank? How is he going to keep Tank off of him? How is he going to stop Tank? So for me, I think the fight would be ugly. I 1,000% agree with Rolly here. Rolly also said that Shakur has fragile hands. His hands are frail, which I just kind of went over. Again, if your hands aren't healthy, how do you ward off someone like that? So you have bad hands or fragile hands that he was dipping in ice after the Padley fight. So again, fighting a guy with no camp, damages both of your hands. You pulled out of the Joe Cordina fight and said you need hand surgery. So when are you going to fight Tank? Shakur also did an interview and said he can't fight for real more than 2 times a year because of his hands. So with those type of issues and Shakur's style, it's hard for me to believe that the Tank fight would see Shakur as the winner. I really think you would have to hurt Tank and kind of get his attention, so you have to have some type of respectable power. And we know that's not really Shakur's mentality. Shakur does more tweeting and barking on Twitter and talking like that, like, I'm the best, I'm really like that. But then when he fights quasi-amateur style, he doesn't know how to sit down on certain shots and like open you up and go for the kill and finish. You know what I mean? Some people have it and some people don't. Like, you look at basketball, Michael Jordan, killer. Kobe Bryant, killer. These guys can finish games. They're clutch. LeBron James, very good basketball player, but he didn't have that same killer instinct like Jordan or Kobe. You see what I'm saying? And the killer instinct, the Mamba mentality, Jordan hitting the jumper on Craig Elo. I don't know if you can even teach that. It's a mentality thing. You kind of have it or you don't have it, and you could be a very good basketball player, but certain guys like Kobe and Jordan, you would want the ball in their hands in the final few seconds of a game if you have the chance to win with this final shot in a buzzer beater, right? Shakur, I'm likening finishing guys in boxing, pause, that sounds crazy, but getting the knockout in boxing, I'm likening that to a buzzer beater shot, somebody with the clutch gene in basketball. Shakur, in this instance, does not have the clutch gene. The only guys he is knocking out are these weird, like, matches that nobody wanted to see. Nobody really rated these guys, or they had no camp and they're an electrician like Padley, or it's a guy like Yoshino, some unknown commodity. When he's fighting bigger names or better names, or even a name where you might have seen their last fight, like Artem Harutyunyan, we watched his fight and his effort versus Frank Martin, right? He's not stopping him. He's not dropping him. When he's fighting the Edwin de los Santos, he's not stopping him, not dropping him. Even in his previous weight class, right? He had Oscar Valdez and he dropped him, but doesn't really have a way to put it all together and stop him. Meanwhile, styles make fights. Navarrete, he didn't stop Valdez the first fight, but he lumped him up crazy and had him looking disfigured. And then when they rematch, he stopped him. It's a mentality thing. It's a style thing. So Shakur, his style is his style. He's probably about 27-year-old. And, it's going to be harder for a leopard to change spots this late in the game. I think Shakur is who he is. If it was easy for him to change, then he would have changed it by now. Because for his last several fights, he's been getting the same criticism, really since the Edwin de los Santos fight. So if this was some easy fix where he could just go into camp and then come back with the renewed vigor, then I think he would have already done it now. Again, Shakur is getting mercy stoppages. Rolly said something that was hilarious. He said, tell Shakur to get 3 stoppages in a row and then we can entertain a Tank fight. He said, heck, get 2 stoppages in a row, real stoppages, and we can entertain it. Listen, all of this stuff, especially in 2025 and beyond, this is who you are as a fighter, your brand, your profile. You have to find ways to make yourself exciting. That's why I brought up Jake Paul earlier. You can say whatever you want, but Jake Paul comes from Disney Channel and YouTube, and his brother was on Vine. So he comes from the digital age, so he knows how to entertain. He knows how to do a press conference and talk some trash, or do a skit, or, call Canelo out when his fight with Canelo is up in flames. do a skit about Mike Tyson when he's about to fight Tyson. You dig? So that's my honest opinion when it comes to fighters using their brand. Shakur doesn't really make himself quote unquote likable in general. He always seems like kind of grumpy. He'll do interviews with his arms crossed, bad body language, almost like he needs a PR person. He needs a charm school or something, right? So you don't have that going for yourself in terms of this charismatic personality. Like, people could say whatever they want about Rolly's fight style, but Rolly keeps himself relevant. He could just keep talking and people are like laughing at his interviews, joining his lives and stuff. So Shakur doesn't even have that part of the showmanship game mastered. And then stylistically, your style is not resonating and connecting with a lot of people. A lot of people are looking at your style like, it's cool, it's effective, but it's also putting me to sleep, or it's hard to watch. His style is looking like anchovies. If you like anchovies and you want anchovies on your pizza, by all means, order it. But there's going to be a lot of people who they're like, nah, anchovies don't taste good to me. Nah, anchovies, that just looks slimy. Oh no, anchovies are too salty, right? And there, some people, it's an acquired taste. Some people don't want anchovy pizza. Maybe the Ninja Turtles do, but you know, someone in your family might not. So I really do agree with Rolly here. I truly believe that there's just better fights. And I've said this, even a guy like Keyshawn Davis, he's younger and he's homies with Shakur Stevenson, but the way his performances, and I'm not going to go into the top ranked matchmaking and stuff like that, because there is a bit of that with Keyshawn's career. But either way, if you're not supposed to be there with Keyshawn, he'll at least get you out of there. You know, he's finishing guys like Gustavo Lemos and Dennis Baranchenk, who is a champion. He was a new champion, but still a champion, right? And I believe an Olympian. And he's ending them pretty quick, so you don't have to sit around all day. Shakur is going late rounds, literally championship rounds, second half of the fight, with an electrician that had no time to prepare for him and doesn't even have power. And the electrician, all things considered, didn't really do bad. And meanwhile, Shakur's hands got broken up trying to throw combos and make a statement. And then you finally did it to the body shot, which was the ticket, because he had no camp. I firmly believe this. There's no way for me to prove it now, but I firmly believe if Joshua Padley had a full camp, I'm not saying he would have beat Shakur, but I definitely do believe he would have went 12 rounds, because he got very close, dangerously close to going 12 rounds with zero camp. So I would like to believe that 10, 12 weeks of hard training and running up mountains and, you know, doing burpees or whatever, jump roping, skip roping, sparring, I would tend to believe that that would increase your durability and put you at a better odds. Like, this man off the couch, off of working a 9-to-5 shift at his electrical job, literally went in there with the champion and held his own as much as humanly possible, considering he doesn't have power and he had no camp. And he went 9 rounds just off of the couch. You know what I mean? So to me, Shakur, that performance really set him back. And you have Shakur and Turkey to blame, because if they would have picked someone a bit better, even on late terms, then Shakur wouldn't have this mountain of criticism to face. If you pulled him off the card and said, hey, you know, the Schofield fight, we got to just reschedule it. That's the best thing to do here. Then we could still get that fight, put it on the Ryan Garcia Rolly card. That would be big. That would be great. But they elected to leave him on the card when they had room for a fight like that to drop off. But they left it on the card, which was, to me, foolish, because it really disrupted the flow of the card. Because you have a good fight and a solid fight, and then you have Shakur's fight, which was, to me, the worst on that February 22nd Riyadh season card. Now, I'm not blaming him because Schofield got sick, but again, you could have picked someone that was a bit more of a challenge. You had a 12-week camp. This guy had a 0-week camp, and you picked a guy with the easiest possible guy stylistically, a guy with no power. You know, I would want to believe. And see, that's what gets Shakur in trouble with the public is instead of just, hey, I got the win, I knocked him out, keep it pushing. Shakur is seemingly gloating and bragging like, I knocked out the electrician. I'm the best fighter in the world. No one could beat me. And then talking like Clubber Lang because you knocked out an electrician. So again, I see why Rolly is saying what he is saying because it makes sense. With brittle hands and hand issues, with no real knockouts outside of like mercy stoppages at lightweight, does Shakur have what it takes to beat Tank? For me, it's not even the type of fight that is like must-see TV, even though Shakur said he's must-see TV. That's my thoughts. Let me know how I did in this video. And do you agree with Ego? Do you agree with Rolly? Or do you think, you know, the fight would be huge? The other thing is, for me, Shakur is putting up obstacles. Talking about, oh, Turkey can get it done. Why does Turkey have to be involved? Why did you sign with Eddie Hearn? You were a free agent. If you really wanted to fight Tank, why didn't you go directly to him and his people? Why did you involve middlemen, which would infinitely make it harder? And that's obvious because you're adding people who have no connection to Tank and no say-so with Tank's career. We unpack.